All right, guys, so we've saved it as a new file, right? Sorry, I had to retrace my steps there. That was the first step in the last video. Then we went ahead and moved all of these origin points to where our joint should be, uh, meeting our character's torso. And then we also did layer parenting to make sure that all of these little armbands are connected to their respective limbs. And then we connected all of this to the torso at the end. Okay. If you didn't do that, make sure you go back, but you should have a character that looks something like this. So now let's go ahead and get to the walking. I'm first going to start by actually adding a plane, like a little runway, which is why I hid the first one. Sorry if you hear my dog making weird noises. So I'm going to go ahead and select Shift A to add, select Mesh, and then I'm going to look for plane, the first one right here. So Shift A, Mesh, Plane. I'm going to select S for scaling. Looks about good. And then S again, but I want to scale to the x-axis. It's probably overkill, totally overkill, but that's fine. Size yours to whatever you want yours to be. And I'm going to select the number 3 on my keypad just because this gives me this view. And I can see that this plane that I just added is actually cutting off the feet. So I'm going to select G on my keyboard, use the arrow keys to move them down. I'm going to check the bottom, make sure. Okay. Maybe a little bit more. So, oh, there we go. G. I'm going to select Z. That looks about right. A little bit on one foot, but that's okay. All right. Michaela actually brought up a good point in class, how we can lock things. And it's not in our layers, I'm sorry, our outliners, but again, if you don't have this menu open, the keyboard shortcut is the letter N as in Nancy. And then go to item, make sure you have it selected, and then you can hit these little locks right here. Okay, and now that should stay in place. Right, so first thing we want to do is check our render settings really quick. And if you don't remember what that looks like, it's in our hide that properties panel. It looks like a little printer icon. And I just want you to make sure that your frame rate is set to 24 frames per second. That looks correct. Okay. I'm going to grab my timeline, make it a little bit bigger. And I'm actually going to switch over to this view right here. I just went up here, guys, and selected this view. Colors were kind of throwing me off. All right, so this is our character in this position. First thing I want you guys to do is make sure you move your timeline right here to frame 1. So playhead should say frame 1. And I want you to go ahead and let's select all of the limbs. So I'm gonna select my right arm, hold shift, select the left, the legs, and make sure you're clicking on the actual limbs and not the little bands. Frame 1 is selected. Then to add a keyframe, you're going to select the letter I. And it should bring up this menu. I want you to select location, rotation, and scale. So I as in I am, right? And you'll see that in your timeline you have a little yellow diamond shape. So this is our first keyframe. So yay, you selected a keyframe, or you added a keyframe. I want you then to grab your playhead again, go to frame 5, so it's right there, And now I want you to basically move these limbs of your character to the first whoops, to the walking pose. So I'm going to start off with this side. Okay, I'm going to select this arm right here. I'm going to select R on my keyboard for rotating, and I'm going to move this arm forward, select this leg, and if we know how we actually walk, we know that they're inverse, so this leg goes back. If the arm on this side goes forward, the leg goes back. So now I'm going to jump over to the other side so I can hit Y up here if I wanted to. Select this arm, select R to rotate back, select the leg, R to rotate, and then forward. Okay, so we should have something like this. Once you have that set, I want you to go ahead and now select all the limbs again. You might have to change views. Can't tell. Dang. Couldn't tell if I had the actual leg selected or not. There we go. Okay. So all limbs are selected. Same thing. We're going to hit I on our keyboard. What? Oh no. There we go. I on our keyboard, location, rotation, and scale. Okay, now we scrub through the timeline, we'll see that our little character is doing something like this. And if you want to test it, the spacebar tests it for you. So pretty good so far. If you haven't, go ahead and do a save really quick. Or a save as, up to you. You can actually put like save as, and now we're starting the walk cycle. I have one, so I'm not going to do it. Okay, so your timeline should have 2 keyframes. Should look something like this when we scrub through the timeline. All right, so with all the body parts selected, which we do have them already, I want you to go ahead and select the first keyframe, hold Shift D, and move this one over to frame 10. So if you missed that, select, I have all the limbs selected. I clicked on keyframe 1, did Shift D, and then move that copy keyframe to frame 10. So we should have something like this now. Okay, perfect. So we're going to basically go over, actually that looks a little weird. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna move these over 1. So just created a little marquee, gonna do G to move them over 1. Okay, now we have a even amount of space between these keyframes. So you should have a keyframe in frame 1, keyframe in frame 6, and then 1 in frame 11. Right. So the next one I'm moving over to is frame 16. And we're basically doing the same thing we did for this one, frame 6, but we're inversing it. So since my left arm was forward, for frame 16, this one's going to be back, and then the other one's going to go forward. So jump over to frame 16. Double checking that. Okay, yeah. So I'm moving this one back. So selecting this one, R to rotate, moving this one back, moving this leg forward, rotate. Oh wait. Yes. Huh. Don't mind me. I just saw something a little weird on my timeline, so. Okay. Doing it again. Oops. Here we go. All right. And now select all the limbs again. Select I on your keyboard. Location, rotation, scale. So we should have something like this now. Let's go ahead and do a file save to save our progress. So the next video is going to be how we're going to loop this right here indefinitely. But looking really cute so far, guys. So save, 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 save.